So if I am to understand correctly, it sounds like the Green Bay Packers met with Jayden Reed's representatives, which are now Drew Rosenhaus and company. And see, this is where it gets tricky for me. Basically ensured that Jayden Reed was the number one wide receiver. Gabe, am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, so the report that came out from Shefty is Packers GM Brian Gutekunst met last week with Jayden Reed's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, to clarify the wide receiver status in Green Bay after the team drafted Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. Team said it will not affect Reed's status as its top receiver per source.
Yeah, he's top receiver until they want to pay him. And then they'll tell him he's the third receiver.
Or top receiver until somebody
Matthew
beats him
Golden.
out. Yeah.
Well, so that, guys, if I'm being honest, was where my brain went, does not compute. So you're trying to tell me that Jayden Reed doesn't have to compete with Matthew Golden at all this offseason to be the number one wide receiver? I like Jayden Reed. I like him a lot. You guys know I did that feature with him for College Game Day. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for him. But to sit here and think that he and his representatives can just lift their leg and pee on the number one wide receiver position feels a little entitled. I'm not sure, Chew, that Jayden Reed has earned that distinction. Has he separated himself enough from the pack to be the de facto number one wide receiver when they went out and spent their first-round pick on Matthew Golden?
No, it sounds like this receiver room is full of a bunch of babies. You had Dobbs last year. I'm not playing because I'm not getting enough targets. Well, turns out you were getting the most targets of everyone. Now, Jayden Reed, do you like me or do you like me like me? I mean, this is ridiculous. Why don't you take the bull by the horns and say, all right, you drafted a number one receiver. I'm going to show you I'm better than him, and I'm going to do it on the field instead of calling your agent and like, I want to trade. It's ridiculous.
And to be fair, I don't know that he said that or that they said that. But the only thing that is interesting to me is why is this even out there?
I have no
I mean, I understand that Adam Schefter, who we will talk to tomorrow and maybe get a little bit more clarity on, puts information out as he gets it. But what is the incentive here, Gabe, for Jayden Reed's camp to even have this out there? To me, it makes Jayden look bad.
I don't know if this is Drew Rosenhaus, who his new agent, stepping up and going, hey, I'm stepping up for my guy. I'm protecting my guy. I'll go to bat for my guy. And he's letting everybody know that, hey, if you have one of my guys on your team, I'm going to be asking tough questions about my guys on your team. That's the only thing I think I can make it make sense is that Drew Rosenhaus is trying to flex some muscle here a little bit.
You're 2 years away from a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, but you would typically have those conversations a year from now, because you'd want to have those conversations going into that final year.
But this isn't something that should be made public. I mean, it should be a call. If this is the case, a call to Rosenhaus and say, hey, don't tell anyone this, but what do you guys feel about my client?
Yeah.
You know? Should have been behind closed doors.
But that's just not how Drew Rosenhaus typically works, right? Like, he does everything pretty publicly.
I think these players today just have to be loved, you know? Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, look,
I'm not saying every player, but I mean, these prima donna positions is like, you know. I mean, when Keith came in, I wasn't happy, but I wasn't going to whine about it, you know. It's just competition is good. Competition is good, and it should light a fire under his butt. He should sit there and go, you know what? I had a hell of a beginning of the year, and then what happened? Fell off the map. Well, you know what? I'm going to go work at that.
well,
They say I'm not good against man. I'm going to show them I'm good against man. Not like, Drew, call them up. I want to know if they like me or like me like
Well,
me.
and again, I don't know what the impetus was. I don't know if Jayden Reed went to his agent and said, hey, can you just get some clarification? And this is sort of how it rolled out. I don't know if Drew was like, this is ridiculous that they drafted Matthew Golden. Don't they know what they have in you? I'm going to have a conversation with Brian Gutekunst. I don't know what started this whole thing. What I'm still scratching my head over is why in the world would Brian Gutekunst tell them that he's the number one wide receiver? Jayden Reed, again, like him, want to be clear, think he has a lot of potential. Very explosive, dynamic player. Glad he's a member of the Green Bay Packers. But I went through last night and pulled Jayden Reed's numbers compared to all of the other de facto number one wide receivers in the league. It ain't even close.
He's 45th on that list.
Aren't even close,
Yeah.
guys.
if you take a look at his snap count numbers, the Packers don't think he's a number one wide receiver. especially in the second half of the season last year. I mean, a lot of these numbers are in the 50s. After he had 5 catches for 113 yards against Detroit in Week 9, like the highest percent of snaps that he played from Week 10 on, just barely over 70%.
Yeah.
Like, he's not out there all that often.
Well, and
They've done research on or the numbers show that when they go 2 wide receivers, he's not out there. You have to have 3 wide receivers for him to even be on the field.
Well, they're kind of pigeonholing him as a gadget guy.
Yeah.
Well, and I pulled another number, guys. In the 33 regular season games that the Green Bay Packers have had Jayden Reed for, he has recorded fewer than 5 receptions in 22 of them. That's 2/3. In 2/3 of the games, he has 5 receptions or fewer. When I think of a number 1 wide receiver, I'm thinking of a guy you're feeding. You are featuring. That's not featured. And again, I'm not saying that any of those things are Jayden Reed's fault. Maybe that's what the conversation was. Maybe the conversation was, hey, we're looking around the league. We'd like to put this guy in a position to be the number 1 wide receiver, but y'all aren't doing anything to help him out. Maybe that's what the conversation was. But Gabe, were you shocked that as part of this post, it basically said, yeah, he's our guy. He's our number 1 guy.
And this is something we'll talk to Jason about a little bit. But what's interesting to me is year in and year out on the offensive line, it seems like there's competition. Like Rasheed Walker has been in a competition for left tackle every year he's been in Green Bay. He's come out on top every year. He's met that competition and gone, nope, I'm going to be the left tackle. And it looks like he's going to have to do that again. Also, according to Adam Stenavich, it looks like Zach Tom, who is arguably their second, maybe best offensive lineman at the right tackle spot, is also going to be in a competition for the right tackle spot this season.
But just look at
so if those guys have to compete, Jayden Reed just de facto is number 1 despite spending 2 of your top 3 picks on wide receivers?
Because this room is soft. I mean, look, it hasn't even been a year. When did the Romeo Doubs thing go down?
Last year, yeah.
Middle of last year. So since then, we've had Doubs. We've had Christian Watson's dad. So who knows what went on with those guys? I know it's not him.
Yeah, I can't.
But it's still out there. Like, what did he say?
Basically, they'll get what they deserve. They don't want to win.
I'm just talking about the room and the drama that comes from that room, and now you got...
Yeah, I don't want to blame Christian for the stupid stuff his dad says.
Look, yes, but when it comes to agents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I did it. I'd be pissed at a practice. I'd be pissed at a game or something. You vent to your agent, right? So to me, it sounds like Jayden, I don't think Rosenhaus would pick up the phone if he didn't hear from his client. So he must be hearing things from his client where he needs to be reassured that they love him.
And Rosenhaus has been around long enough where he's just not going to do it on a whim. Like, I'm sure, like, when the Packers, you've talked about this, how you weren't happy when Keith Jackson first showed up in Green Bay. Sure, you vented to your agent. Yeah. But the first time you vented to your agent about it, I'm sure he didn't pick up the phone to Ron Wolf and
never did.
Yeah.
No.
And just go, hey, Ron, what the hell's going on here?
You know what he probably said to me? Grow up. No, seriously. You know?
Can we use that on you?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll listen.
Doesn't feel like it's going to be effective.
You know?
I have some questions about the inclusion of the top option thing. That feels like, to me, a little editorializing by Mr. Rosenhaus. That feels
when
like...
he talked to Schefter.
Yes.
If we're following the breadcrumbs.
Yes, correct. That feels like the Packers probably said, yeah, we have plans to use Jayden Reed. He's can be great. He's been a useful weapon for us. I don't think there was any conversation of, yeah, he's going to lead the team in targets, yards, and catches. That seems like you're trying to inflate and publicly put out there that, yeah, my player's good and is still the best option in Green Bay.
But, I mean, I guess he would probably have to worry more about Savion Williams than Matthew Golden. Well, him and Golden. I mean, Golden can move around, eventually probably move around, but it's not like they play the same position.
I said it on draft day. This is going to be a big year for Jayden Reed because if you have a true wide receiver 1, like you envision Matthew Golden being, guess what they do with those guys? They play him in the slot. They play him at the X. They play him at the Z. They move them all around, and they make an advantage for him. Basically, when the Packers went 3 wide receivers, Jayden Reed lined up in the slot every single time. He, interestingly enough, led the team in routes run last year, but he also wasn't on the field for all that much because they were rotating those guys like it was Little League. Everyone gets snaps, everyone plays here, but when they went to 2 wide receivers, like Gabe said, he wasn't on the field. So now he's going to be losing some of those snaps at the slot position, and he's not going to be available for the 2 wide receiver sets. So that means your playing time de facto is going to be going down.
Which also, if we're listening to the coaching staff and what they're telling us about Tucker Kraft and how they want to get him more involved and maybe have more 2 tight end sets, that also limits the opportunities for Jayden Reed, because if they're going more 2 tight ends, they're only having 2 receivers on the field.
I just wonder if it's a way for them to drive down cost of receivers, because I don't agree with the way they do this. And I told you guys before, you don't get tired out there. So if they're using the excuse, well, we don't want them to get tired. I never got tired.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get tired, and if you do get tired, you're not in shape. So that whole argument is gone. I don't think that any of them are good enough to stay on the field. That's, to me, the biggest problem.
They're trying to figure out what their best option is.
This conversation's all about money.
Jayden Reed being paid like a number 1 wide receiver eventually.
Is trying to posture. Is he a number 1?
No.
You're not a number 1.
Well,
right
Can
now.
I just give you some numbers, guys? Can I give you these numbers?
$30 million?
So Jamar Chase, 127 receptions, 1,700 receiving yards, 17 touchdowns. He's top of the list as far as these wide receivers go, right?
Pretty sure that's Jayden Reed's career.
Justin Jefferson is after that. This is just last season. 103 receptions, 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns. Give me another name you guys want to hear. CeeDee Lamb, 108, 12, 55, 11 touchdowns. Jayden Reed, 55 receptions. So we're talking about more than half of some of these guys, right? Well, 155, 127. Yeah, a half. 857 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. Like, I couldn't find a metric. Maybe you could look at yards per reception, because he was 15.6. So you could argue, like, when he got the ball, he was able to turn it into long gains. But that is the only area he leads any of these categories.
Can you read off Chase's numbers again from last year?
127, 1708, 17. Is that what you have?
So those numbers are all better than the career numbers of Jayden Reed. Every last one of those, receptions, yards, and touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Better than Jayden Reed's last 2 years combined.
And again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and say that Jayden Reed cannot evolve to the number 1 wide receiver on this team. But at this moment, right now, right here in the present day, in reality, he's not. So it's just interesting to me that there's a report out there that says that Gutekunst and Rosenhaus had this conversation, and basically they were like, oh, yeah, he's our guy. He's our number 1 wide receiver. When you went out and spent draft capital on, again, Matthew Golden, who, again, as you guys have said, may play in a different spot on the field, but I think everything is set up for him to be the number 1 guy. 800-990-3776. Get us your reaction on this conversation. Ron in the 920 says, I'd be careful attributing Goody to anything in that report. It came directly from Drew, show me the money, who gave the Goody quote. Again, I think we are conscious of that this did, Rosenhaus likely talked to Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter put that post out there. It may not have been exactly how Goody phrased it is exactly what I was looking for. Thank you for saving me there, too. We got to take a break because we do want to get to Jason Wilde this morning and get his reaction on that. Plus, the coordinators did speak yesterday. What popped from those conversations? We'll talk about it right after this.